If you could start out by talking about a little bit of how you got into the arts and who you are and where you're located and all the cool stuff that you're doing, just talk it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually in a church right now working on a project. This is the third time I've been back to this church. It's been pretty fun to do like the children's areas and things like that. Um, but where I'm from is originally rural Illinois, so middle of a cornfield basically is where I'm from, and I love being from there. It was always great to grow up there. I had a lot of good friends, and but around high school, I was like, man, I just really want to get out of here and see what see what's out there, So I'd say probably my junior year in high school, I got invited to come to Colorado Springs to be a part of like Marie Walsh Sharp Foundation for artists throughout the country. And so I was one of 300 that got picked. So I was really happy, really excited. And I came out to Colorado Springs my junior year. And then when I came back to Illinois, the fall of my senior year, I told all my friends, I'm like, I'm out of here after high school. I'm moving to Colorado Springs. And so I came to Colorado Springs and have been here ever since. I love it. It's beautiful, beautiful city. So
I love it. Yeah, I love Colorado too. I remember, so I'm from the Midwest,
okay,
and we don't have, so I'm here in Missouri, and we don't
okay,
have the ocean near us. We don't have mountains. And I remember the first time I
yeah,
went to Colorado, I was like, this is my favorite state. This is so
uh-huh,
cool. That's
yeah. It's
amazing. I bet
so
you have so much
beautiful.
inspiration around you.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of really fun like areas that you can go and just paint, like Garden of the Gods and Pikes Peak, and just really tourist friendly and also kind of easy to get away from the city too and just get into the mountains. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So with your mural career, did you just wake up one day knowing how to paint murals and you were booked out and everything was great, or how did that go?
Kind of, no, I'm just kidding. It was honestly like I think my maker. Like I've ever since I was a little kid, like I would just sit down and draw because in the wintertime, as you know, in the Midwest, it's super cold. And so, some days when it was like too cold to even go outside, I would just sit down on the floor and draw. Or like if I was staying at my grandma's house, I would sit and just draw at her place. And I used to love like G.I. Joe and like all those like cartoons that I thought were really cool, like Transformers and stuff as a kid. And so on like my grandma's envelopes at her house, I would draw these trucks blowing up and like machine guns shooting and stuff. And I remember her telling me like, if you draw something nice for me, I'll get you some paper. And so I started like kind of just studying different things that she wanted me to draw, like flowers or, can you draw this vase or things like that. And just really studying, everything that was around in her house. And so I just really kind of, I don't know, I just got like this fire inside of me that I want to find out why things look the way that they do. Like even when I'm out in nature, and that's why Colorado's so beautiful. Just trying to really figure out like why does it look like that when sunlight bounces off rocks, or atmospheric perspective? Why is it the mountains in the distance look fairly blued out compared to this tree that's in front of it? Stuff like that. So I just feel like I've ever since a really young age just wanted to try to um, figure out why things look the way that they do. And then obviously as I was getting older too, friends or family would say, "Hey, can you draw this for me?" And so I'm sure a lot of other artists too have the same experience where you have people that "Hey, can you do this for me?" And you start doing stuff, and you start realizing that you can get something in return as like a trade or whatever, and then you finally realize money. I get money in return, for this. And so that's kind of just how it's built up, over the years.
Yeah, so nowadays, do most people just come to you and do you have to do a lot of pitching? Did you have to do a lot of pitching in the beginning, or how did that work?
A lot of it's been word of mouth, fortunately. I feel pretty fortunate that a lot of the projects that I have and even when I was younger too have been word of mouth. Or like I was never really in any of clubs or anything like that in high school, but I remember that there was a dance that we had, and they asked if I would paint the backdrop for the dance, and I was pretty excited about it. I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I think it was like homecoming or something like that, and so it was a pretty large scale thing for the back of their pictures that you take and stuff. And so from that in high school, after I did that, then I started getting more interest in stuff, and then other people would say, yeah, well, I know someone at my high school that could do your logo or whatever. And so just a lot of word of mouth from where I grew up. And then I'd say out here, just really before I moved back to Illinois, I did a little stint where I moved back to Illinois after I lived out here for a while. I went to a business in Manitou Springs, which is right next to Colorado Springs. And I asked the business owner if I could paint a mural on their wall. I just walked in and basically said, hey, I've got a design I thought would look kind of cool for the side of your wall. Would you let me just paint it for the price of the paint before I leave, I just want to put my stamp on Colorado Springs before I left. And so they said, yeah, if you want to paint on the side of this wall, you can, but we'd like you to do this. So they offered a different idea, and so I sketched it up for them. And then, so that was kind of a nice word of mouth for me when I came back to Colorado Springs, and I could say, yeah, I did some work for these guys, and just kind of built from there. But yeah, a lot of word of mouth, and then nowadays just social media and trade shows. Trade shows have been really good to me. So
Trade shows. Tell me more about that.
yeah,
That's something I really
yeah.
don't know a whole lot about.
Oh,
Tell me
really?
about
Yeah,
that.
that's
Yeah.
that's really fun. It's been really good for us. Basically, what I really want to hone in on is homeowners and also business owners that have a room in their house. They just really want to do something different. Maybe it's their forever home, so it's a little bit maybe higher of an income bracket. Um, and they go to these home shows, at least here in Colorado Springs, where they go through and there's a lot of vendors, people that do decks, people that do different stuff like that. So my wife and I decided, well, what if we did a trade show and we focused on decorative finishes, and also murals, and really try to hone in on, people's home theaters, people's maybe their kitchen. They want some accents, things like that, like grapevines with some decorative finishes and stuff. So we set up a booth at I think we did three of them when we very first just really started doing this full time, and it was really good. So basically, I set up a huge canvas, which was sheetrock with a 2x4 frame behind it. And then while people walked through and were walking around looking for different ideas for their home, remodeling ideas, they'd walk past and see me working on a mural. And like, oh, cool, that would be really fun, like in our basement, or that'd be really fun in, our theater room. And so that was really great because it was good. It was good leads. It was constant, fresh leads of a market that was ready to buy right now. And obviously that was all before COVID, and obviously things are starting to pick up now, but with the whole industry, as far as like construction and stuff like that. But right before COVID, things were really just like hopping for construction, out here in Colorado Springs anyway. And so these home shows, you'd get hundreds of people just coming through. And the very first one we did, I'd say we got about 30 good leads. And then from those 30 good leads, it filtered down into 15 that were, legitimate. People are always interested, but then, they've got to do a budget and whatever, and maybe someone wants to do their roof instead of paint their basement or whatever. But from those 15, then I'd say from that very first one, we got 6 really good, solid projects out of that. So, trade
That's
shows,
awesome.
I think, are great. Yeah.
Okay, so I
Mhm.
can like hear some of the listeners in the back of my head already and say they're
Yeah.
like, okay, so I want to do a trade show. He's talked me into it. And so say someone wants to do that and
Mhm.
say I mean, say it's slightly in the future and COVID isn't usually a big thing. And so but they want to do this. How do they
Mhm.
apply? How do they get in a home show?
Sure. Well, home shows, and I guess the word should be, uh, yeah, primarily home shows, not necessarily the trade show. I use that word, and that's not
Okay.
exactly right. Home show, basically, like a home and garden show. Usually, like the best time of the year to hit it is January, at least in my experience. It may be different for everybody. And in Colorado Springs, that's what I've experienced was in January. That's when people are like ready to get these projects going when the warmer weather comes up. Um, so if you look, if you Google in your area any event centers or anything like that where um, they may have some events coming up, you can easily find it. There's a lot of event centers that are in your area where people mostly you'll be sandwiched in between people that do like roofing and decks and landscapers and things like that, which is great because you can make a lot of connections. And that's what I did for a lot of it too, is just walk around a lot of these different booths and stuff and say, hey, it's what I do. If you ever get in a conversation with someone who's looking for something that I do, then please tell them about me. I'd hand them a business card, and then I do the same for them. There was also a lot of people that did lighting, which is great for what we do because if somebody has a theater and they want cool lighting in there, then maybe they're looking for someone who specializes in lighting. So I give them my name, or I give them their name, and vice versa. So that was really cool. But I would suggest that to Google, different home shows in your area, and try to hit it at the beginning of the year because it's not as good in the middle of the year. You'll still get leads, um, but it's not as solid as the
Okay.
beginning of the year.
I love this idea because I just love the concept of going to where there's may not be a ton of other artists. Like you can go to like an art show, but then there's a bunch of
Yeah,
it's just a lot of artists, which is great because people are wanting to buy art there. But it's just going to a home show like this, like you said, you're beside roofers, and it's really hard for roofers to make their thing look really interesting and flashy. So
yeah,
us
yeah,
next to a roofer, we're like, look what we're doing. Look how cool
yeah,
that is.
yeah.
So
And
I'm totally
that's
into
it.
this.
That's what they love too. And that's where the great conversations like happen is when you're next to one of those businesses. You're a business owner and you're talking to another business owner and you're trying to figure out like, how can I give the best value to our customers? And then I remember I had a conversation with someone one time where, even in your lobby, wouldn't it be awesome if you're showing off one of your roofs? Because they were talking about maybe having a three-dimensional roof in their lobby. I was like, wouldn't it be cool to have a sunset, right? Like right behind your fake house front, right? So they had like this, facade of a house with a roof coming off of it from what she was telling me. It was out of their budget because they were just starting, but, stuff like that, though, possibilities happen all the time because then if it really does connect with them and they do have a budget for that, then it's like, yeah, come up and give us an estimate. That'd be awesome, And so you're really just like throwing spaghetti at the wall with them and they're getting excited, and before you know it, you're geeking out with them and like, oh yeah, what if we did like mountains behind it and this and that, and I don't know. So that's really fun. Like you're saying, if they don't necessarily do a lot of, you know, I don't know. I don't want to say roofs aren't interesting, but I mean, it's kind of fun to
Yeah.
be next to someone like that and make it, get them a crowd and you get a crowd at the same time.
I love that. It's a
Yeah.
double whammy type thing. The people who
Hmm.
pay to go to this show or that come around those can be your customers, and the people who are also showing at the show can be your customers. That's
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
It's anybody. Oh man.
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, so we had a question on here. Taryn, she's actually in the Arts Academy Advanced, and she is in Alaska, and she's a go-getter. She's like anything I would do to get it. Like she's going places. So she's looked into this home show. But
Yeah.
what are the fees for home shows? Because she was saying that it's quite a bit
Yeah.
for her area. So she's in Anchorage.
Yeah, I mean that's the unfortunate thing about it is they do get kind of pricey. We worked out a deal with the guy that was doing it the very first time that we came in. He was really trying to fill the place up, and so my wife and I chatted with him and said, "Hey, this is the first year we're going to do it. We just really want to try it out." We were asking him all kinds of different numbers, like, "Hey, how many people come through? I mean, how many are serious buyers? This and that." Um, and so as we were talking, we figured out a way that we could, or he was open to it. Let me just say that he was open to giving us a deal the first time so we could try it out. From that, though, we well made over what we paid for the event, but each city's so different. So like Colorado Springs is different than Denver's market as far as not only what you can charge for murals, but also for those different home shows. The Colorado Springs home show was a lot cheaper than what we looked into with Douglas County, which is right next to Denver. And Douglas County, just a little background, is probably the wealthiest county in Colorado, one of the wealthiest, because there's so many just huge like ranch homes that are in that area. So the home show in Douglas County, they marked the price up quite a bit. So you're right, it is very expensive, but it's one of those things that I feel like it's worth it when the time is right. If you're really, getting a lot of word of mouth and you keep yourself busy, a month, a few months out, even, 6 months out, whatever, for everybody it's different. But like if you're keeping yourself busy without the home show, I'm sure it's probably a great thing. But when we very first started, we needed that home show because we had a lot of word of mouth, but it wasn't a lot of the higher end clients that we were really seeking. Because let's be honest, if you're seeking out the higher end clients and they want to go to the moon, that's great. Let's go to the moon. That's always fun because it's best for your portfolio. It's best for them and for you. You can really create something unique because they've got the budget for it.
Yeah. Okay. I love this. And
Yeah.
it also just comes down to, I think, Taryn, just, you got to spend money to make money. And,
Yeah.
it's a lot in the beginning, but as long as you can get a return, then I think it's
Hmm.
totally worth it. I mean, even thinking
Yeah.
of ads, like doing Facebook ads and what you're spending
Hmm.
money to make money. She mentioned that hers was about 5,000 to go in there. And she's like, I can't do that. Is that pretty high or is
That
that a
seems pretty
standard?
high. That seems
Okay.
that seems pretty high. I mean, I'm out of. I would say the one I did in Colorado Springs was not that high at all. We were pretty fortunate. The very first one we did was like six or something like that, $600, which is really
Okay.
doable. But 5 grand, yeah, that's pretty pricey. But imagine though, like, and I don't know what the market is there in Anchorage. You said Anchorage?
Yep.
I wonder if like, if it does draw in that higher end market there, that if it did make a return, like at least, half the year, like, you know what I mean? At least like if you put aside for your marketing budget or whatever, and you're able to make that back fairly
Okay,
quick,
yeah.
hopefully.
And I love that you mentioned having a marketing budget too, because that's not a lot of things, that's something that artists think of. They just think, you get paid to do, this art thing, but having a marketing budget is very much thinking of it as a business, which is what we
Yeah,
love to do here too. So I love that you said that too.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
just the whole spend money to make money, figure out what a marketing budget would be, Taryn, maybe for the year, and then just plan on making it back. Or maybe even too, I was just thinking, so we just did like a lesson and whatnot on like traveling murals and how to get travel mural jobs, and a lot of people would suggest we would suggest, doing a mural in exchange for stay. I wonder, Taryn, if they might, since you're like would be a first time customer, maybe you could pitch them, be like, hey, do you have any painting that needs done around your place? Maybe, is there
Yeah.
some logos that you could trade maybe and trade work for at the show? And
Hmm.
just tell them you're really interested in it, and then you would be a paying customer maybe next year, or just something to get your foot in the door. Because I think having going there'd be a really great return, and you'll get the customers that you want. That's another thing, getting the
Yeah,
customers you want.
yeah.
So more on this trade show, home show thing. I'm really interested in it. So say somebody like Taryn. So she's been a full-time artist for about a year, and she's really just starting to get her name out there. Like, it's very much in the beginning. And so she has a couple murals that she's done. So this is kind of speaking broadly for anybody listening who has maybe a few murals under their belt, but not like a ton yet. Do you think that's still a good time to go and invest in a home show? And how would you set up your booth to do
Hmm.
that?
Well, what we did was, yeah, I think if you feel like you're not getting the leads that you need, I think that's a good opportunity to really look into a home show. At least for me anyway. That's what we felt. So when my wife and I set up our booth, we did it. There was a 10 by 10 booth, and we did it so that it was we took and one of them we took sheetrock, basically panel 8 by 10 panel, and we butted them together to look like it was the corner of a wall, and so it looked like a living room. And so we wanted it to look like a living room, and we found some stuff that was pretty current, what was hitting like right then and there, and it was this particular style of wallpaper. And what we were trying to like achieve at the time was, um, hey, we realize there's wallpaper out there. We get it, and wallpaper is kind of making this little bit of an insurgence, at least at the time, and because it always changes. So we picked a lot of the colors that were really pretty contemporary at the time that everybody wanted or whatever. We kind of researched that, and then with our little corner, like we put a table in there and a TV, like it would be a TV, and that was for our marketing. So we had video of us of what we do playing at the same time. But we tried the best to make it look like a living room, the window and everything. And then our goal though was when people would come by to explain to them, and some of them that knew about this already, that wallpaper was really big. was that, yeah, we can custom paint a mural on your wall in any style that you want. Um, you know, and you get to tell us what it is you want. So we did Garden of the Gods, which was, in the same style of what, you know, this reference we had. And so we basically said, oh, this could be truly custom to you and whatever it is that you want, any style that you want. So that was really intriguing to them, that they could have something that was local, the Garden of the Gods, on their wall in a style that looked like it was wallpaper, and they could see it then in their own living room, And so it was really muted tones. It was really subdued, but then we had on the video behind it all these other examples of stuff that we were doing, trying to keep as much variety as we could. But yeah, I think honestly, Taryn, I think that if it made sense, you were able to talk to that person who puts on the venue, and even say, listen, I'll attract customers to other booths. What's that worth to you guys? Is there any way that we could do some sort of a raffle even, where I'm working on this particular large scale canvas right now. You could either give that away as a prize, or you get a discount on a mural or something that brings people by. I don't know. Some people are open to that, like if they can see that it's going to benefit their customers coming in the door, I think they'll be more likely to do a deal with somebody.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people for their events, they pay for live painters, like at a wedding and
Yeah.
whatnot. So
Yeah.
maybe pitching in the live painting thing about how you'll
Mm-hmm.
be painting a wallpaper, and yeah, you could give it away. Ooh, I like this. Ooh, it's like
Yeah.
marketing
Yeah.
brainstorming. But I
Yeah.
think you're onto it again with the wallpaper thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing here in Missouri too, especially right now. Even people
Yeah.
love the wallpaper, and it's like,
Yeah.
and the cost for wallpaper and the cost for installation, it's pretty comparable in some cases. It depends on the design of just getting it
Mm-hmm.
hand painted. So that's what we've been
Yeah.
pitching. That would be a really good thing to pitch at this home shows. Just maybe
Yeah.
giving like wallpaper examples and how
Mm-hmm.
you could make it custom or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
about that. Oh yeah, Taryn comments. She's like, I was definitely thinking of offering live painting. So awesome.
That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. And you mentioned you had a TV with video playing. That is
Mm-hmm.
just on another level. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
so cool. And
Yeah.
the visual aspect of it, I think, is so huge with this.
Mm-hmm.
You're setting up a space where somebody can envision their own, like,
Yep.
oh, that we could do this. Ah, that's just so
Yeah.
this is great. If you're gonna do it, guys, if he's inspired you to do this, go all the way. Do exactly what he's doing. Get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah. I love leads. Leads are fun. And like what we do is so relational. Like you're talking with a homeowner, you're talking to a business owner. If you're able to connect with them to any degree, like just, not really just trying to sell somebody, but you know this very well, but like just trying to get to know them. Like I'm truly excited to know about their business. I'm truly excited to know about like where they're from or whatever. And at these trades or at these home shows, like that's your opportunity where all day long you can just get like hopped up on coffee and just be like, da, 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 just like yapping away, talking to people. And before you know it, these leads are happening. And, like I said, not all of them are legitimate. You're going through a lot of them and they're just interested. But beyond like all those pitches that are thrown, uh, in reference to baseball or whatever, at least a few of them are going to be some hits, and if not right then maybe down the road, or, if you went on site to give them an estimate, maybe the estimate wasn't what they needed. I learned a lot from that because I now ask before I start a lot of projects, what's your budget? Because this is so flexible, this is so custom. What's your budget? We can design around your budget. So what is it that you want? We can do a really simple, silhouette style mural that is lower on the totem pole, or we can really go the whole 9 yards with the detail, and it could be pretty high, but it'd be something that's truly unique in whatever your motivation is.
I love that. Do you ever
Yeah.
give them like a ballpark price? Like we start at 1,000 and you go to 10,000, or what's your ballpark price that you give people? Because
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
curious.
I'm still learning. This isn't the 100% perfect method, but what I've figured out was that um, very first, right off the bat, I wanted to establish what do I need to make an hour? What do I have to make an hour? And so I figured out that price. And for, the sake of this conversation, it may be lower, it may be higher. This is, but like if say someone wanted to or needed to make, I don't know, $50 an hour, they wanted to make $50 an hour. So if they found themselves a wall that's 8 by 10, right, and they're either their own home or they made a canvas out of sheetrock in their garage and did this, and they basically said, I want to make $50 an hour. I'm going to paint on this 80 square foot wall the coolest design I want to do or whatever that I want to do, and it's at the top tier of my talent or at my detail level, right? Because we all know that we can do lesser detail or more detail, whatever. So you spend that amount of time getting that design the way you want it on the wall, and then you tracked your time, and basically it was maybe 40 hours to do that wall, just as an example. So from there, then I know what I can make my square footage price for the highest end of my detail. So now I've got kind of a range where I know my highest end detail is for 80 square feet, takes me 40 hours roughly. It's not always going to be the same, but you've got a ballpark number. And then just kind of add on to that square footage price. So now you've got the very high echelon of your tier, and then find a middle tier where you know that you can get away with, less time to finish an 80 square foot wall. And that's your mid tier, what do you call it? Range, basically. And then your lowest end, where it's mainly just shapes, mainly just whatever color for that market that basically wants something. You don't want to turn them away. They just want something simple for their kids' room. And so now you've got another range. So basically, just for this conversation's sake, like say it's like $8 to $15 a square foot for like your lowest end, just as an example. And it's always different for every city because you just got to test your market, see what your city allows you to get away with, And get away with is a bad word, but I'm just saying, like, you know what I mean, what you can try. So like if I was going to ballpark somebody for a lower end mural, say, listen, they're kind of pressure cooking me in the moment right there because I don't like giving an estimate right then and there. I like to look at it, kind of mull it over, figure out the design first. But like if they're asking me, what do you think something like this would cost? And then I tell them or I ask them, what's your budget? I don't know what our budget is, that kind of thing. Maybe they say. It's like, okay, well, we can do this wall here for anywhere between $8 to $15 a square foot. Keep it really broad. Keep that range really broad because you don't want to be pinned down to one number right away if you don't know the design, And then, or we can go, another level of detail is, $15 to, $25 a square foot, and then whatever it is. So you just keep going up. So if I can kind of give them tiers, I can read them a little bit, or they'll just tell me sometimes, like, ooh, for 80 square feet, I don't know, or, I don't know if I can handle that much, but I could probably do this much. Now they've finally told me what their budget is, or we've had a communication. And now when I design the design for them, I can figure out, okay, can I do this within that parameter of time, But I never tell them my hourly rate,
Okay.
So I
Well,
don't know. That's just well.
okay. What is your hourly rate? I'm like just between artists.
No, I don't like to say just because each city's so different,
Okay,
each
okay.
city's so different. And like I honestly, to be honest with you, I don't hold firm to what I just told you either all the time because as you know, different customers, different situations. Sometimes you got to read it a little bit different. Sometimes it may be a high visible area. Maybe it's a coffee shop and it's a great wall. Though they don't have the budget to do the design that they want. So I may bring it down a little bit internally, knowing that I may not make exactly what I want. But in return, I'm going to get a lot of visibility as I'm painting it. In return, I'm going to, my name will be on it for a lot of people that are sitting in that coffee shop. They'll see it a lot. So I think every project, every situation is different, but I do wish I would have told myself, my younger self, figure out your rate first, figure out a good part of the equation, which is that whatever size wall you want to pick. But I think 8 by 10 is fairly common. Most height of a room is 8 feet. A lot of times 10 feet is the width, So with something like that, figure out how long it takes to paint that square footage, and then you can figure out your square footage price for maybe your highest end detail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Do you ever create like a pricing sheet or anything, or you just talk about it in person?
I do. At the trade show, I did. I did a square footage for the different tiers, and I don't mind, saying what the square footage is because it's such a wide range, and then I can always adjust for whatever the design is, but yeah, I did an example of my lowest level or lowest what's the word, detail. So mostly shapes, like a shaped silhouette mural kind of thing, where it kind of recedes into the distance. I'm sure you've seen it before, where the wall color itself, maybe it's slightly darker where the trees are in front of it as it graduates out.
Yeah.
So just as an example, I had that on there to show, okay, this is probably the simplest form of detail that we can do. So it's from this to this as my lowest tier range, and then the mid range and then the high range. So that way they could see it too, and then when they're brainstorming with me on site, they could say, well, I think I'd like this one or that one, you know.
Yeah.
And so, and then the next step was getting a meeting at their business or at their home, and then from there we could even brainstorm and geek out a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is your goal mostly to get a meeting with them? Is that the step two after getting a lead? By the way, how do you get a lead at one of these shows? Do you take their business card? Do you have them write it
Mhm.
down, their information? How do you take a lead?
Well, what we did was we made a box, like we wrapped it so that it looked like it was like black wrapping paper, kind of fancy or whatever. And since gold is in our name, I think we had something gold on it, like gold ribbon or something like that. But what we did is we printed off a bunch of strips of paper that had their name, their address, their phone number, and their email. And not everyone wants to give all that info, but at least I needed their phone number or their email and their first name or whatever. And if they wanted me to come by and look at the wall. Um, and so basically they would fill that information out and then they put it in the box. And then at the end of the trade show, I'd go through all those different strips of paper and see, who I could follow up with on Monday. And before they left, I would ask them, when's the best time to call? And I think there was like a little checkbox on there too. So I knew like morning time's not good or whatever. And then a little comment area for either me to write in or for them to write in. Yeah, I would love, a forest mural in my uh, theater room or whatever. And so they would write that on there or I would. So I knew what I was kind of referencing too as I was calling them back. But then
That's great.
follow up the phone call, and then on the phone call, just remind them how we met, and then from there, see if I could get over there to look at the wall itself.
Yeah. Okay, great. This is all really great information. Thank you so much for sharing all this because
Yeah.
I know nothing about all of this, and I know that there are artists
Uh-huh.
out there who could really use this method to do that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever had any kind of projects go bad where it was a really good learning experience that you could maybe tell other artists about it so they don't make that mistake?
Yeah. I still do occasionally. I think
Yeah.
yeah, I think it doesn't. I don't think it's a matter of if. I think it's when. I think I think because I think it's so custom what we do. It really is. It's like you can't really tell. It's not as straightforward like you know if someone had me just standard paint maybe this wall that's in here. That's pretty straightforward. There's really no. I mean, you cut in the edges, you roll it out. That thing. There's really no issue of um, you're not going to veer too far off of what you estimated. With murals and stuff like that, I'm sure everybody, every artist out there like in the world like has probably come across this where you just like maybe doubting a certain section or you're working on something, it's not looking the way you want, and you're like, I don't know. For me, it keeps me up. Like sometimes it just like keeps me up at night. Like I'm like, oh man, why is that not looking the way I wanted it to, or whatever? Taking me longer than I expected. But I think really what I've learned from uh, some projects that were really difficult and I lost a lot of time or a lot of money on is not preparing properly. Like each project's so different, and like I really got to check out the terrain, and sometimes I missed the boat on that, or really got to check out like, darn it, I needed scaffolding for this project. I didn't bring my scaffolding with me. So all I got is this ladder. So I can only get so far today and tomorrow or whatever, like all these different things. Um, but I think that for me is the biggest thing that I need to get better at continuously, is just really prep better, really, prepare a week before, even sometimes if it's a really big project, a month before. Okay, do I have everything I need? You know, do I have all the paint that I need? I might have to run to Sherwin-Williams and get like another gallon of paint because I, you know, misestimated or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's probably my biggest.
Yeah, that's great. These are all amazing tips. I'm excited
Yeah.
about it.
Huh.
Okay, is there anything you don't like to paint without?
I think these, like, headphones. If I don't have headphones, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, I can still get stuff done. It's so easy to get distracted. And these are nice because they're noise canceling. And I'll put on music or a podcast, and before I know it, the day is pretty much like, wow, I didn't realize what time it was, because like I'm just like in my zone, just like locked in on my work. And so I think these here are the best purchase that I've ever made. That and knee pads, like, because I don't have knee pads and I drop down to a knee like on concrete or like outside or something like that. It's so distracting, you're like, darn, like, that hurt, you know.
So true. I
Yeah.
actually just bought knee pads and I was
Yeah.
so frustrated with myself because there's so many projects where to just
Yeah.
kill my knees and I'm like, why don't I just buy them? And now years
Yeah.
in, I'm like, okay, finally.
Yeah. Or a hardwood floor, if you're on a hardwood floor or something like that, trying to get low where you're painting and, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry. Oh yeah. If people don't realize how much physical ability is needed to do murals. It's just here,
Yeah.
there, and everywhere. You're up and down on a ladder, and sometimes a
hmm
scaffolding, and up on the, and down on the floor, and all of that.
Yeah, it's a good workout. It's like yoga or something, You're like in all these contorted positions trying to paint, around trim and everything like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I have one last question for you here, and it's the
Yeah.
question I ask everybody at the end of every podcast. And I've so appreciated all of this. People, I think just going off on this little tangent of doing home shows is just great. I think this is great information. But if
Yeah.
there was one thing or one piece of advice that you give artists that want to make art their full-time career, but they don't even know where to start, they're in the very beginning, where do you think a good starting point would be?
Yeah. I think if I was to tell myself, my younger self for sure, it'd be start with that rate. Find out what your rate is. That way you know what your value is, and really test it against your city's market and feel it out. See what you can get away with. Kind of investigate maybe what some other artists in your area are able to get at. Really make connections with like interior decorators. Really try to pick their brains too on like just their whole market. That's our mark. We are a tool in their bag, basically. And if we position ourselves as being valuable to interior decorators, then we have someone that's producing leads and closes for us. Without even really being in front of that customer, but really making it so there's a relationship. And that's something I'm still working on developing, is more relationships with interior decorators, because a lot of them sometimes can be leery, thinking, well, I don't want you like, sliding in there without me and talking to a client and saying, I'll paint this wall without me, So it's really a relationship thing with that interior decorator. But I would also suggest too, like, besides just, really getting your rate and making connections and stuff, is, also just really just trying to figure out how you can create value for
Yeah.
whatever the customer is. Like for me, I wish I would have known that a lot sooner. Like, it isn't about like what I want to be able to paint on the wall all the time. I'm gonna have fun doing it no matter what. Even if somebody wanted me
Yeah.
just to paint just an apple, like a huge apple on their wall, and that's it. Like, cool. I mean, I'll find enjoyment in that. I love it. I love doing this. I'd do it for free if there money was no object in this world. This is what I would do for free. But obviously you need to make money. But like, creating that value, like, how do you want your apple? Like, what, I'm in service to you. I'm this, utilize me as your your plumber or your electrician. You know, that's how I view my business. Is I need to create customers and create value, like in a sense that you have a problem, I want to fix it, I want to knock it out of the park for you. So how can I knock it out of the park for you? That's what I tell myself 10 years ago. It's like it's not about me, it's about them. And once I figure that out, it's easier for me to brainstorm with them on their project, get them excited about their project, and really just, like I said, geeking out is just like, I love it. It's so fun, just throwing spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks. And by the end of it, we're just both like, high-fiving or whatever. And, you know, so,
Yeah, that's also, yeah, it's just working
yeah,
together with
yeah,
people who are going to help you get jobs, with the people that you're painting for. It's just all such a
hmm,
collaboration to make the customer happy and all of
yeah,
that. And yeah, everything that you said is so spot on and so direct and so helpful for so many artists. So thank you
yeah,
so much
good.
for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for
This is a
having
really
me.
great
Thanks.
episode. Yeah.
Thanks. I appreciate it. It's fun. It's really fun.
Awesome. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your Monday, and I will talk to you later. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.